Video games. Everything from Grand Theft Auto to small flash games. Video games have sealed themselves a spot in our modern society. We all grew up playing something, and for a lot of us, especially those who grew up in the early 2000s, most of that playtime was spent on sketchy websites and simple flash games, while others spend their childhood on home consoles and PC gaming. But video games actually go way more obscure than anyone would think, and similar to other forms of media, video games can be just as dark also. While working on my last video about the true depth of the internet, I briefly had mentioned a small niche game called Sad Satan, the so-called game from the deep web that allegedly surfaced into the clear web. This briefly mentioned topic got me interested in doing some more research into finding some other obscure and unknown video games with questionable backgrounds and or containing disturbing content. This is where I had stumbled across a whole world of underground unknown games shrouded by mystery and lost to time. I discovered the world of obscure video games. If you're somebody who is active in the horror and mystery side of YouTube, then you might be somewhat familiar with the concept. The world of obscure video games runs deep and old. It's a world filled with red herrings, baseless creepypastas, and new games pretending to be old and obscure. But in between all the garbage and overpopulation of free Steam games trying too hard to seem edgy, there is a true and real world filled with amazing and rare pieces of history that are each their own rabbit holes of rich history and interesting tales. And the truth is, it's actually really hard to track some of these games down. That is, of course, if the game is actually known, because some of these games are truly obscure to the point where most people don't even believe in their existence, and a good amount of them are in fact lost media. While researching for this video, I have found instances of many games that were deemed as fairy tales turning out to be real, or vice versa, real games slowly fading away into becoming lost forever. But good thing is, during my admittedly short time researching this, sifting through the many forum posts, sketchy websites, old YouTube videos, and squinting at the many video game icebergs out there, I have found a few games that piqued my interest. And of course, I picked games that aren't commonly known, like for example Kanye Quest, Sad Satan, or Hong Kong 97. Actually, we will have to circle back to that last one a bit later. But the important thing to remember is that the few games I will talk about today are only few of many thousands, and during my investigation I came across some of which the stories are still developing, others which had huge potential to be related to cults or hacker groups, and some possibly being real deep web games, but I was forced to put them all in the back burner while waiting for their conclusion. Who knows, maybe I will give them their own video once there is more substance to go over. Now, the umbrella term of an obscure video game can fall under many categories. It doesn't necessarily have to be creepy or related to dark forces. An obscure game can be something that is very underground and hard to understand, like LSD Dream Emulator. It can be a game lost to time, becoming lost media, or it can have an interesting backstory on how the game was formed, like Hong Kong 97. And speaking of Hong Kong 97, and before I go over the first game I found, Taiwan 2001, I first have to explain what it is. For those who aren't familiar with the game, then let me bring you up to speed. The mainland China and Hong Kong conflict is something that we're still dealing with to this day. Hong Kong has been a colony to the United Kingdoms since 1842. Since that time, Hong Kong stood as its own territory with its own democratic and economic system, distinct from those of mainland China. This United Kingdom sovereignty, however, had an expiry date, which was set to June 1st, 1997. After 156 years, Hong Kong was supposed to be passed on to Chinese sovereignty on that date. Since then, and even as recently as 2020, Hong Kong and China are still butting heads with each other, with the majority of the Hong Kong population not wanting a merging with mainland China and wanting things to continue as before, separated with their own culture and systems, while the mainland Chinese government, officials, and population seeing Hong Kong as a territory that has been part of China and was just leased for a period of time. Back in 1995, 2 years before the so-called handover of Hong Kong was to take place, tensions were high and many people were speculating over the potential consequences of the merge. Around this time, the release of a little game called Hong Kong 97 was taking place. Now in the early 2000s, people started seeing this Hong Kong 97 game that nobody had before heard of surfacing on sites hosting old games for emulation purposes. The game runs like a very old cheap game. The plot of the game was simple. The game would take place 2 years in the future in 1997, when the handover of Hong Kong would take place. This caused an increase of crime rate in Hong Kong due to the immigration from mainland China. The game describes this as a herd of fucking ugly reds rushing from the mainland. So the Hong Kong government hires Chin, a powerful relative to Bruce Lee, to get this, kill the entire population of China. The game is obviously silly and has you in a simple open level with randomly generated backgrounds and simple NPCs to kill and dodge, with a final boss being Tan Shu Ping, a giant floating head based on a previous former chairman of the Chinese Communist Party. And of course, we can't forget about the beautiful music, a 6-second clip of the song I Love Beijing on loop, and the game over screen, which was a dead body. People were obviously a little disturbed from this real-life unknown dead body image in this previously lost game. This brought a lot of attention to the game and a lot of speculation, which some believe the game had darker ties with shady groups of people and that maybe the creators of the game had something to do with this corpse. The game gained a cult following since for both its notoriously poor quality, hilarious language and plot, and of course the game over screen. After a while and tons of investigation from the community, the creator of the game came out and cleared out the air. Now the game was made as just a troll and that the mysterious dead body image was a victim from a Bosnian war that he got from a documentary film. The Japanese game journalist by the name Kowloon Kurosawa had an idea of creating a game that would be a satire to the industry. He had before dabbled a lot in the piracy world of gaming, creating copies on floppy disks and selling them at a fraction of the price. And so he went to create this game within 2 days with the help of a friend for the Super Famicom. This was an unlicensed game, of course. He marketed the game through word of mouth and through underground magazines, but the game sold around 30 copies. Kurosawa saw that it was a flop and moved on with his life. The interesting part of the story is for a long time the game disappeared off the face of the earth. It was forgotten. Not that anybody would even remember it. I'm definitely making it seem a lot smaller than it was because back in the day this was a huge mystery and people still talk about this to this date. Now Taiwan 2001 is a less known, more obscure game that was inspired by Hong Kong 97. The game itself was developed from unknown developers Akususoft, translated from Japanese to literally Crapsoft. It was up on a website for download for free, but the site has been down for a while now, and so the game has become lost media. The only thing that we do have are simple screenshots. Similar to Hong Kong, Taiwan and China have a long history of issues to say the least, with Taiwan seeing themselves as their own self-governing entity completely separated from China after the Chinese Civil War. The game plays on this political situation and puts you in the middle of the Chinese invasion of Taiwan, similar to Hong Kong 97, except this time the Taiwanese government hires you, an etiquette expert, to reform all the wild Chinese immigrants that are causing crime rates to go up. Little is known about the game's actual gameplay aside from what is shown in the screenshots, other than it's similar to the gameplay of Hong Kong 97, in which you control a character named Wang Xiuming and throw projectiles at enemies such as people from mainland China and passing motorcycles while dodging them. All the artwork of the game was taken from photocopies of Taiwanese textbooks, and the game has its own game over screen that was inspired by Hong Kong 97, except here it's an edited picture of a CPR dummy made to look like a real snuff image. It is a shame that the download link of the game is down, although it is possible that the game is up on some Chinese, Taiwanese, or Japanese website that we just don't know about. It is also possible that multiple people have the game downloaded to their machine, so I feel like it's only a matter of time before the game is found. So here we have a game that is lost to time, that was inspired by another. Taiwan 2001 is a spiritual successor to a game that had a cult-like following, and similar to Hong Kong 97, one day this game will pop up somewhere and the mystery will finally be solved. As I was continuing my research, there was another game that kept popping up on icebergs over and over again. The name was Lostboy.exe. When researching this game, it popped up on YouTube. It looked like a regular creepy maze type game, almost like a copy of something like Sad Satan. But as I was ready to move on to another, I noticed something. Apparently this game was posted to 4chan, appearing sometime around 2012 to 2014 as a downloadable. As people started downloading it, the game turned out to be malware, specifically a rat, remote access Trojan, and from what I could see, people couldn't even play the game. Now knowing this information, I went back to YouTube. That's when I realized that the only gameplay video of this game that is available is one by a YouTuber called Saint. Now Saint is known for playing obscure games, so it's natural for him to play something like Lost Boy. How he got the game or how he got it to work is unknown. The game itself is a very simple maze. Apparently you are a lost boy in this strange environment with grass at the bottom, a roof on top, and randomly generated corridors with these strange demonic images popping up from time to time. These images are usually heavily edited photos of Jesus, demonic art pieces, or strangely placed images of babies. You could argue that the game has some deeper meaning behind it, but that's not really the point here. The thing about Saint is that he's also known for creating some of these obscure games and playing them on his channel, acting like he just found them online. He is known for working on a game called Schnell Online, which was its own mystery that we won't get into today. So the possibility that Saint has the only Lostboy.exe video on YouTube because he is a creator of the game is definitely there. If that is the case, then Saint also gave people a Trojan? There are stories out there saying that the guy who originally posted the game on 4chan started then posting personal information about the users that downloaded the game. I cannot prove nor deny this, but I did find this Reddit post from 2012 warning people about the user posting Lostboy.exe and that the game was a Trojan. Other people also claimed that there was two versions of the game, Lostboy.exe and Lostboy.tnp.exe, the latter being the spyware version. So it's possible that there is a working version of Lostboy.exe out there somewhere, but still strange that the only person that has the game is a YouTuber known for creating obscure games and playing them on his channel. I think the signs are too big to ignore. The world of obscure video games is full of stuff like this. Lost games, games that give you Trojans, and some that bring a community together into cherishing a story or a piece of art, making a game transcend from a simple video game into something that can be studied and talked about for years to come. I wish I could go further and deeper into this topic, but this is just one video and I am only one man, so maybe I will return to this in the future. If you guys know any games, obscure games that is, that are worthy enough to be featured in a part 2, do let me know. If you have enjoyed this, go ahead and watch my other videos and subscribe to not miss anything new. Thank you so much for being here with me today, and I will see you very soon.